Reddit users, please share your unexpected encounters with celebrities' stories. What are some things you feel ashamed of now? I met Eminem without knowing who he was. It was a couple of decades ago, around 1998, came into a theater I was working in the middle of the day on a weekday. I was an assistant manager. He came up and asked if his bodyguard could get in for free, explaining that he was going to see the movie and the bodyguard was working and not actually there to watch the movie. The whole ask was so weird, but it was the middle of the day, barely any customers, and the audacity of the request was so funny, I just let him go without buying the other ticket. On his way to the theater, an usher talked to him in the hall and told me who he was. It was maybe half a year or so later when I saw a music video and was like, oh yeah, that guy. My friend went to a concert in LA and Britney Snow was in front of her. She didn't know that. Tapped her and asked her to take a picture of, not of Britney, but of my friend and her friend. My friend said she seemed annoyed. As in annoyed they didn't ask for a picture with her. She took it and turned back around, lol. 2015 I stayed at Chateau Marmont, LA, in one of the cottages. Left 6 a.m. the next morning to ride, bike, to Vegas to get married. Lady Gaga left the same time as me. She followed me through the garden and out to the front. She says nice ride. Our bike was sitting by the front doors. She asked us where we were going and we told her we were going to get married and she struck up a conversation. She had her 2 French bulldogs with her. It was dark and I didn't realize who she was till she turned and jumped into the back of a waiting white Rolls Royce. She wished us much good luck. She was super nice. Not a crazy story, but I sat near Nina Dobrev at a bar in Toronto once. I felt bad for her. Lots of people were saying her name and taking a bunch of photos and videos. The bar was decently crowded and pretty loud, so the fact that I could hear people so clearly was kind of wild. She came in with 2 friends, dressed very casual, clearly just wanted to have a few drinks and chill. She sighed and just looked tired and upset at all of the chatter and phones. Even though I was freaking out internally, grew up watching her on Degrassi and TVD, I left her alone because I felt bad and didn't want to add to the crowd, but I heard her talk to a few fans later on and she was nice to them. When I was working as an event waiter in NYC, I served or saw or interacted with quite a few celebrities and I honestly don't remember most of them, but Naomi Watts was a rotted pig and very nasty to me simply for doing my job. Was neutral towards her until then and now I see her as a Karenly, dried up tube of cunt paste. I sat next to Jamie Lee Curtis in first class on a flight. She had the window seat and was wearing a baseball hat and sunglasses. She turned to me once everyone boarded and said, I know you know who I am, but I am really trying to get some rest on this flight. So nice to meet you, but please don't bother me. I smiled politely and went back to my book. I work with a lot of musicians who've been performing for decades. Most of them hate their fans, and I've often wondered why it is. I think it's the expectation to be something other than a musician when they meet folks. I also think as people get older their tolerance for BS gets smaller and interactions like fan engagement get a bit wonky. I try to avoid meeting famous people I admire. It's almost always a bummer. Not so much unpleasant as a bit awkward. I'd been to see Fascinating Ida and they were in the foyer signing recordings as we left. I went over to say hello to Adele and as I mentioned I'd first heard their music through a drag performance, my words turned to wax in my mouth as I remembered she's a trans woman. So I'd made this faux pas and I'm thinking, oh no, I hope she doesn't think I think this is drag. But she was lovely and rescued me as I stumbled because that's the kind of genuinely nice, highly talented women they are. I worked in TV and met a lot of people, but what fascinates me is the logistics of fame and not the people. Many times a lot of people you'd never think would drive themselves or do a lot of the work themselves and have no assistance but would organize everything once no one was watching. There was an actress well known that would show up to interviews and take the subway in NYC but in a disguise and then take everything off in her backpack. So people in NYC might have been next to a world famous actress in disguise and never would know it. I once had a job interview, way before 2016, at what's supposed to be a comedy or podcast network hybrid that somehow got overtaken by the straight white male demo that was basically Trump supporters, so they pandered to that audience, and I met some far-right persona that was a guest that day, and the dude didn't believe in anything he said and off camera knew he was doing it for the fame and money. I was in business class and sat next to Claire Danes about 8 years ago. It wasn't the first time that I met her. A previous job of mine was encouraging stars or shows to film in NC, prior to Pat McCrory taking away all the perks that made a lot of production happen in NC, so I had met her very briefly in the past. She remembered me, shockingly, and talked like we knew each other. We talked about my so-called life. It was interesting because the show seemed to influence her as much as it did me. Sat next to and chatted with John Hamm at a quiet little bar in San Diego. He was initially celebrity friendly. But once we got to talking about shows other than Mad Men, he was much more natural. Dude is smart and extremely handsome in person. I got the sense that Hamm knew this particular bar wouldn't be packed or bother him much, and that's why he was there. I've also got a funny story about Charles Barkley owning my ass as a little kid, but maybe this subreddit isn't the place for it. Add another one. Also did photography on Rihanna's music tour for a year. One night, very cool club. I was in the VIP area with LeBron James, few other NBA players and musicians. Was just trying to keep my head down and not get in anyone's way. Went to make myself a drink with one of the bottles. Was in a sweatshirt holding a champagne bottle, just vibing. I wanted to get past her back to the couch, but she was kind of taking up a lot of room vibing. I did a tall man step across the corner of the table, back to try to get around her. After I finished my first tall man step straddling the corner of the table, she kind of moved backward, making me stuck. After an eternity, maybe 8 seconds, of being stuck, I feel a tap on my shoulder, turn around and is right there and motions for me to move. I was at a party in LA and ended up talking to Quentin Tarantino. He was really cool and we talked about movies for a while. I didn't even realize who he was until someone else pointed it out later. I was walking in the shops at Caesars circa January 2004. I passed a man with a face tattoo and was like, that guy has a face tattoo. Oh shit, that's Mike Tyson. I said hi Mike and he replied, hi, how are you doing? I wanted to ask for a picture, but my brain stopped me. I was at a party in LA and ended up in a conversation with Kanye West. He was really intense and kept talking about himself the whole time. It was kind of uncomfortable. I accidentally ran into Lars Ulrich at Lollapalooza '96. I was 16 and it was my first concert and I got lost, ending up close to the back of the Metallica fan club tent. I turn around and nearly slam into this short dude in a hoodie and I realize it's Lars. I was a mega Metallica fan at the time and didn't know what to say, but I guess he could tell because he apologized, then joked the entrance was in the other direction. I stammered a thanks, then blurted out that Metallica was my favorite band and got me into metal. He laughed and said, shit, apologize to your parents for us, before running off. I was at a concert and bumped into Justin Bieber in the bathroom line. He was really rude to me and pushed me out of the way. I couldn't believe how arrogant he was. I was in line at a coffee shop in Toronto and Drake was behind me. We chatted for a bit and he even bought my coffee for me. He was really cool and down to earth. Friends, thank you for watching. Please share your stories below in the comments and see you on the next videos. Have a good day.